Welcome to the Infidelity Files. My name is Mia. I'm 60 years old, living alone in the house my late husband and I shared for years. He passed away a few years ago, and since then, life has felt quieter and slower. I fill my days with small routines, finding comfort in the familiar corners of this old house. It was a cool afternoon, the kind where you feel the chill in the air just enough to make you want to wrap yourself up in something warm. I was tidying up in the kitchen, humming to myself, when I noticed a small puddle of water near the cupboard under the sink. I bent down, frowning, and found that the pipe underneath had a slow, steady leak. Just a small drip, drip, drip at first, but it was getting worse, leaving a wet, messy spot on the floor. At first, I tried to ignore it, thinking maybe it wasn't a big deal. I figured I could put a bucket under the pipe for a few days, but after a while, I realized it wasn't going away on its own. So I finally gave in. I found the number of a local handyman service in the drawer, an old flyer that had been there for years. It seemed like fate, really. I dialed the number, hoping someone could come over that day. A friendly voice answered, and I explained the problem. The man on the other end assured me they'd send someone over right away, mentioning a plumber named Ben who was in the area. He said Ben would be over within the hour. I felt relieved. Finally, I wouldn't have to deal with that annoying leak anymore. While waiting, I decided I'd get ready for a shower. It felt like a good time to relax, especially since I'd spent the whole morning cleaning and organizing the house. I went upstairs to my bathroom, letting the warm steam fill the air as I turned on the shower. I wrapped myself in a thick, fluffy white towel, the kind that feels like a warm hug. It was comforting, soft against my skin. I liked how it felt, just being wrapped up with nothing else underneath. I was still holding onto the towel when I heard a soft knock on the door downstairs. My heart skipped a beat. The plumber was here already. I hadn't expected him to arrive so quickly, and for a moment, I panicked, glancing down at myself in the towel. I hadn't put on anything else yet. I thought about rushing to change, but then I shrugged it off. After all, he was just here to fix the leak. I could handle a quick interaction without too much fuss. So, I went downstairs just as I was, wrapped up in my towel, and opened the door. There he was, a tall young man standing on my doorstep. He was probably in his early 30s, with a relaxed, confident look about him. His eyes were bright and friendly, and he had a small, easy smile that made me feel comfortable right away. He wore simple work clothes, a worn pair of jeans, a plain shirt, and sturdy boots, with a tool bag slung over one shoulder. "Hi, I'm Ben," he said in a deep, gentle voice, his smile widening as he introduced himself. "Hello, Ben," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Thank you for coming so quickly." "Not a problem," he said with a nod. "They told me you had a leak under the sink." I led him into the kitchen, my bare feet padding softly against the floor, still feeling the warmth of the towel around me. I pointed to the cupboard under the sink, and Ben crouched down, inspecting the pipe. He opened his tool bag, pulling out a wrench and a flashlight, and started working, twisting and adjusting things with skillful hands. As he worked, I stood nearby, leaning against the counter, watching him quietly. I couldn't help but notice how his hands moved, strong and sure, as he tightened and adjusted each part. There was a calm, focused energy about him, and I found myself drawn to it, almost mesmerized. At one point, he looked up, and our eyes met for a split second. I saw something in his expression, a spark, a hint of surprise, maybe even curiosity. It was as if he hadn't really noticed me before. But now that he had, he couldn't look away. We both froze, staring at each other. I felt my cheeks warm as he took in the side of me, wrapped in nothing but a towel. He seemed unable to speak for a moment, and I found myself feeling both shy and excited. His gaze lingered, taking me in from head to toe, as if he was seeing something beautiful that he hadn't expected. Slowly, he rose from where he had been kneeling, standing just a few steps away from me. I could feel my heart beating faster, and I noticed he was breathing a little more deeply too, as if he were just as affected as I was. The air between us felt charged, filled with something we both understood but didn't dare to name. His eyes lingered on my towel, and his lips parted as if he wanted to say something but wasn't sure what. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other, a subtle movement, but enough to reveal a growing bulge in his jeans. I swallowed, my throat suddenly dry. Was he getting hard from looking at me? The thought made me feel warm all over. Finally, he spoke, his voice a little hoarse. "Are you okay, ma'am?" The question startled me. "What?" "Your pipes," he said, his eyes searching mine. "Do you want me to finish fixing them?" I blinked, not understanding. "Of course," I said, confused. "Why wouldn't I?" "Because," he began, hesitating, "because I think we're both thinking about something else." I blushed, knowing exactly what he meant. My breath caught in my throat as I saw the desire in his eyes. "Maybe," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. His words hung in the air, a silent invitation. I felt a rush of anticipation, a mix of fear and excitement. Our bodies were inches apart, the tension palpable. Before I knew it, his lips were on mine, a soft, gentle kiss that ignited a fire within me. His touch was gentle, exploratory. Each brush of his skin sent shivers down my spine. I was lost in the moment, my senses heightened. As the kiss deepened, I felt a surge of desire, a longing that I hadn't known existed. His hands roamed my body, tracing every curve, every line. The heat between us intensified, a wildfire that threatened to consume us both. I surrendered to the moment, letting go of all inhibitions. The kiss deepened, becoming more passionate, more demanding. His tongue danced with mine, exploring every inch of my mouth. I felt a sense of euphoria, a feeling of pure bliss. His hands moved lower, caressing my skin. A shiver ran through me as his touch ignited a spark of desire. I arched my back, inviting him closer. He responded, his movements deliberate and intentional. As he reached the peak of his desire, he cried out, his body trembling. I held him close, soothing his passion. In that moment, we were one, a perfect union of body and soul. I was breathless, my heart pounding. The intensity of the moment was overwhelming. I looked down at him, his eyes filled with desire. I leaned in, our lips meeting in a passionate kiss. As our bodies intertwined, a wave of sensation washed over me. He pulled me closer, his hands exploring my body. Every touch, every caress sent shivers down my spine. I was lost in the moment, the world fading away. With a gentle push, he guided me to the kitchen counter. I straddled him, our bodies pressed together. The sensation was electric, a mix of pleasure and pain. He moved slowly at first, building the tension. Then, with a surge of power, he thrust into me. I cried out, my body arching. The pleasure was intense, overwhelming. I clung to him, my nails digging into his back. His every movement sent waves of ecstasy through me. As he reached his peak, he groaned, his body trembling. I held him tight, savoring the moment. In that instant, we were one, lost in a world of pure pleasure. I was breathless, my body buzzing with a strange energy. We lay there for a moment, our bodies intertwined. Then he pulled away, his eyes filled with a mixture of desire and satisfaction. "That was incredible," he murmured, his voice low and husky. I nodded, unable to form words. My mind was racing, trying to process what had just happened. It was a whirlwind of emotions, a mix of pleasure, fear, and exhilaration. As we cleaned up, the lingering tension between us was palpable. Each touch, each glance was charged with unspoken desire. "I'll be back to check on the leak in a few days," he said, his voice barely a whisper. I watched him leave, a strange sense of longing filling me. The memory of our encounter was still fresh, a vivid dream that refused to fade. Days turned into weeks, but the memory of that night continued to haunt me. It was a secret, a shared experience that bound us together. I wondered if he would return, if we would continue our forbidden affair. Then one afternoon, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Ben standing on the doorstep, a familiar smile playing on his lips. "Hi," he said, his voice soft. "I was just in the neighborhood and thought I'd check on the leak." My heart raced. Was this fate or just a coincidence? As he stepped inside, I couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. The spark that ignited that night was still burning bright. He stepped into my kitchen, a familiar smile playing on his lips. "Just checking on that leak," he said, his eyes twinkling. I knew it was a flimsy excuse, but I played along, the thrill of his presence outweighing any pretense. As we stood there, a silent understanding passed between us. The air crackled with tension, an unspoken promise of what was to come. He reached out, his fingers brushing against mine. A shiver ran down my spine, a familiar sensation that sent a surge of excitement through me. He pulled me close, his lips brushing against my ear. "You look beautiful," he whispered. His touch was gentle, his words filled with a tenderness that took my breath away. I felt a warmth spreading through me, a feeling I hadn't experienced in years. It was as if he had awakened a part of me I thought was long dormant. We spent countless hours together, our connection deepening with each passing day. We would walk hand in hand, our conversations filled with laughter and shared dreams. He made me feel seen, understood, and cherished. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the room, we sat together on the couch. The silence was comfortable, a silent understanding passing between us. He reached out, taking my hand in his. I turned to face him, our eyes meeting. In that moment, time stood still. The world outside faded away, leaving only us. As our lips met, a spark ignited, a fire that burned bright and passionate. We sat on the couch, the world outside fading away. His fingers traced patterns on my arm, a gentle touch that sent shivers down my spine. "I didn't expect this," he murmured, his voice barely a whisper. "Neither did I," I replied, my voice soft. Our eyes met, a silent understanding passing between us. It was a connection that transcended age and circumstance, a bond that felt both familiar and extraordinary. We spent countless hours together, sharing laughter, secrets, and dreams. He made me feel seen, understood, and loved. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the room, we sat in comfortable silence. The warmth of his presence filled the room, a comforting embrace that soothed my soul. "You know," he said, breaking the silence, "I'm glad I found you." I smiled, my heart filled with gratitude. "Me too," I replied. In that moment, I knew that I had found something truly special, a connection that was pure and innocent, a love that defied expectations. As the days turned into weeks, our bond deepened, a testament to the power of human connection.